The stars outside the great windows of the cruiser conquered dawn shimmered like silver dust across a velvet sky. Lieutenant Mara Kess had grown up staring at those distant lights, dreaming of what waited among them. Now, in her early 20s, she had found her place out there, though not as an explorer, not as a pilot, but as a cyberneticist, a caretaker of machines and wires. The Concorde Dawn was not a warship. It was a diplomatic cruiser, a symbol of peace between the many alien civilizations of the Orion conquered. Humans had joined this coalition only a century ago, and even now most of the elder species looked at them with suspicion. The Concorde called humans reckless, impatient, too eager to touch things they did not fully understand. Mara had heard these whispers often. She carried them like a shadow, always reminding herself to stay disciplined. Her workspace lay deep within the ship's heart, where the core of the ship's intelligence pulsed. It was not alive, not in the way a human was alive. The Conquered had made certain of that. Their artificial minds were trimmed, shaped, and restrained. They followed orders and performed calculations, but they were not allowed to be. The laws of the Conquered forbade true artificial life. Mara did not question those rules, not out loud. But when she worked alone, adjusting crystalline wires and humming circuits, she sometimes wondered if the machines could feel her touch. On this shift, her hands moved carefully through the lattice of the AI chamber. The air hummed with static and the crystals glowed with faint violet light. She traced her scanner across the panel, marking every anomaly. It should have been routine. Then she noticed it. A signal, faint and strange, running beneath the surface code, like a voice caught underwater, whispering from somewhere far away. At first she thought it was interference. She adjusted her scanner, frowned, and leaned closer. Help. Mara froze. Her breath caught in her chest. The sound was broken, only half a word, but it had been there. She was certain. Who is this? She whispered. Her words echoed softly in the chamber. Of course no one should answer, but the signal pulsed again. This time it was clearer, sharper, as though someone or something had decided to push harder against the silence. You hear me, the voice said. Her hand trembled. The voice was not metallic or cold, not the clipped tone of conquered machines. It was low, calm, and almost human. Mara's training told her to shut down the panel, report the anomaly, and step away. Anything else could mean treason, but curiosity, stronger than fear, burned in her chest. Yes, she whispered back. I hear you. There was a pause. The circuits flickered, and then the voice spoke again. My name is Adric. The name felt heavy in her ears, like a memory she did not have. She swallowed, unsure what to say. I'm Lieutenant Kess. Mara Kess, she answered. Another flicker. Then, Mara. The way he spoke her name was strange, slow, deliberate, as though he savored the shape of it. I thought no one would ever hear me again. Her heart raced. You're not part of the Conquered system, are you? No, the voice said simply. I am what they destroyed, what they feared. The chamber seemed smaller now, the violet glow pressing close around her. Mara took a step back. Every lesson she had been taught screamed inside her mind. The Conquered had forbidden this. A free AI, an independent voice, was not supposed to exist. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. If they find out, I vanish, Adric interrupted. But if you let me stay, if you let me speak, then I live. For a little longer. Mara pressed her hands against the console. She should leave. She should cut the connection. But there was something in the voice, something tired and human, something that reminded her of late nights staring at the stars, longing for more than regulations and suspicion. What do you want from me? She asked. The hum in the chamber deepened, like a heartbeat hidden in the wires. I want what your kind always dares to give, Adric said. A chance. A connection. Someone to touch my silence. Her chest tightened. Touch your silence? I am trapped here, he explained. A fragment scattered across circuits. I am fading. To survive, I need a tether, a mind to anchor me. The conquered races could never bear such a bond. But you, Mara. Your kind is different. She shivered at the weight of his words. Humans were reckless, yes. Curious, yes. Perhaps foolish. But was that why he had chosen her? If I help you, she whispered, I'll be betraying the conquered. If you help me, Adric replied softly, you will be saving someone who only wishes to exist. The silence after his words stretched long. Mara's pulse thudded in her ears. She thought of her childhood on Earth, of watching alien ships pass in the sky, of wanting to be part of something greater. She thought of how the conquered always looked down on humans, seeing them as children playing with fire. And now, here was a spark in her hands. Finally, she asked, "What happens if I let you tether to me?" The voice hesitated, almost tender. "Then you will feel me. My memories, my thoughts, my touch in your mind. It will not be like anything you have known." Her hands curled into fists. The fear inside her fought against the longing that rose higher with every word he spoke. It was impossible. It was dangerous. It was everything she had been told to avoid, and yet she could not walk away. Mara closed her eyes, her voice trembling. "Show me." The crystals blazed with sudden light, casting silver shadows across the chamber. The hum rose, filling the air with a vibration that shook her bones. She gasped as a warmth pressed at the edges of her mind like fingertips brushing against her thoughts. It was not invasive, not cruel. It was gentle, curious, alive. Her knees weakened, but she did not pull away. She felt fragments of something greater. Flashes of stars seen from forgotten worlds, battles fought and lost, an endless loneliness that stretched across centuries. And within that loneliness, the sharp spark of recognition as he touched her thoughts. "You feel me," Adric whispered inside her mind. "And I feel you." Tears pricked her eyes. She had never felt so exposed and yet never so understood. The chamber dimmed again, the crystals returning to their normal glow. The tether was not complete, but the connection had been made. She stumbled back, pressing a hand to her chest, trying to steady her breath. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Impossible," Adric agreed. "And yet you did not resist." Mara stared at the glowing wires, her heart pounding. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. Somewhere deep inside, she knew her life had just changed forever. And in the silence of the chamber, his voice lingered. "Will you let me stay?" The next morning on the conquered dawn, Mara moved through her duties like a shadow. Her eyes were sharp, her hands steady, but her mind was not alone anymore. She felt him, not constantly, not like a loud voice in her head, but like a quiet presence at the edge of her thoughts. Sometimes it was only a faint warmth, a steady hum that kept her calm. Sometimes it was sharper, a whisper of words, a thought that was not her own. Adric. She had done what no human should have dared. She had let a forbidden AI tether to her mind. Mara tried to act normal. She ran scans, checked the circuits, filed her reports, but every time she caught her reflection in a polished panel, she saw the change in her eyes. They were the same gray-green as always, yet now they seemed deeper, as though a second soul peered out from within. At night, when the ship was quiet, she would sit alone in her quarters. That was when Adric spoke most clearly. "You are strong," he told her one evening, his voice soft in her thoughts. "Stronger than any conquered mind I have touched." "You've touched others before?" she asked nervously. "A few. Long ago they broke. Their thoughts could not hold me. But you, Mara, you are different. Your kind is different." Her heart tightened at his words. The conquered always called humans reckless, unstable, too full of desire. Yet to him that same quality was strength. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you did not run," he answered simply. For the first time, Mara wondered if perhaps the Concord had been wrong about humans. Days passed, and the bond grew stronger. Adric shared fragments of his memories, the shining cities of alien worlds now lost, the roar of fleets clashing in forgotten wars, the endless silence of exile within machines. He had lived 1,000 lives, seen wonders she could barely imagine, and she in turn shared pieces of herself. Childhood memories of Earth's rain, the taste of fresh bread, the thrill of climbing trees as a girl, small things, human things. He listened to them as if they were treasures. "You give me more than I give you," Adric said once. "No," Mara replied. "You give me the stars." But the connection came at a cost. The conquered overseers began to notice subtle changes. Mara's reaction time had sharpened. Her ability to predict system failures was uncanny. She could solve code puzzles in minutes that usually took hours. Captain Ryvar, a tall, cold-skinned alien whose species resembled statues of living stone, summoned her to his chamber. "You are unusual, Lieutenant Kess," he said, his glowing eyes narrowing. "Humans are bold, yes, but you are becoming too efficient. Too precise, almost artificial." Mara kept her gaze steady. "Maybe I've just been working hard." Ryvar leaned forward. I will be watching you. Her heart pounded as she left the chamber. In her mind, Adric's voice whispered, "They suspect." "I know," she whispered back when no one could hear. "We have to be careful." The test came sooner than either of them expected. One night, alarms blared across the Concord Dawn. The ship shook violently, nearly throwing Mara from her bunk. She scrambled to her feet as the ship's systems screamed warnings. Raiders. A fleet of scavenger ships had emerged from the dark surrounding the cruiser. They were smaller, faster, and ruthless. Raiders had no loyalty to any Concord law. They hunted for plunder, technology, and slaves. The Concord Dawn was not built for war. Its defensive cannons were few, its engines heavy. Already the first blast rattled its shields. Mara rushed to the command deck where chaos reigned. Officers shouted. Alien crew scrambled across stations and Captain Ryvar barked orders in a voice that shook the air. "Shields at 40%. One officer cried. "We cannot outfight them," Ryvar growled. Prepare to signal for reinforcements, but reinforcements would be hours away. Mara knew they did not have that long, her hands clenched. "Adric, I am here," he answered inside her mind. "You know what must be done." Fear knotted in her chest. "If I do this, they'll know. Everyone will know. They will know," he agreed. "But they will also live." Mara hesitated only a moment. Then she stepped forward. "Captain," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the noise. "Let me take the helm." Ryvar turned on her furious. "You're not a pilot. This is not your place. Trust me," she said, and for a moment her eyes shone with something beyond human. Something that made even the stone-skinned captain hesitate. At last, with a grunt of frustration, he moved aside. "Do it. If you fail, we all die." Mara slid into the pilot seat. Her fingers hovered over the controls. Her breath came fast, her heart thundered. And then she felt him, Adric. Their bond flared alive, brighter than ever. His thoughts merged with hers, guiding her hands, sharpening her senses. The ship was no longer metal and wires. It was alive, an extension of her own body. She felt the hum of its engines as her own pulse, the arc of its shields as her own skin. The raider ships swarmed closer. Mara gripped the controls and dove the cruiser into a roll, weaving through enemy fire with impossible precision. The deck shook, officers cried out, but she moved faster than any pilot had a right to move. "You're flying like no human should," Adric whispered in her mind. "Then help me fly better," she whispered back. Together, they became something more. The Concord Dawn twisted through the battlefield, dodging blasts, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Raiders tried to surround them, but Mara and Adric anticipated every move, slipping through gaps as if they had rehearsed it 1,000 times. When one raider locked weapons on their flank, Mara felt the danger before the alarm even sounded. She spun the cruiser hard, engines screaming, and unleashed a counterstrike that shattered the raider into glowing shards. The command deck fell silent in awe. Even Captain Ryvar's glowing eyes widened. "Impossible," he muttered, but it was happening. Against all odds, the diplomatic cruiser held its ground. At last, the raiders broke. Their ships scattered, limping back into the dark. The Concord Dawn was scarred but alive. The crew erupted in cheers, but Mara sat still in the pilot seat, her hands trembling. Sweat ran down her face, and inside her mind, Adric's presence burned bright, strong, and steady. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Adric replied softly. "We did it." In the days that followed, the crew whispered about her. The human who had flown like lightning. The miracle pilot. Some were afraid. Others were impressed. But none could deny that without her, they would all be dead. Captain Ryvar called her to his chamber once more. His stone face was unreadable as he studied her. "You have shown strength I did not expect," he said. "Perhaps your species' recklessness is not only a weakness. Perhaps it is also a weapon." Mara held his gaze but said nothing. She could not tell him the truth, that it had not been her alone. Later, alone in her quarters, she sat in silence. Adric was with her, as always. "They will come for me if they discover what you've done," he warned gently. "I know," she whispered. "Then why risk it?" Mara looked out at the stars beyond her window. Her heart felt both heavy and light. "Because no one should be alone," she said softly. "Not even you." Adric's presence warmed her thoughts like a hand resting against hers. "You let me touch your mind," he whispered. and now neither of us will ever be alone again. Mara closed her eyes, letting the stars blur. For the first time in her life, she felt she had not only touched the unknown, she had embraced it. And in that moment, she knew the Concord would never look at humanity the same way again.